In 1952, in Great Britain, something happened that devastated the whole country. Not only the whole country, but many parts of the world were devastated when they woke to the news that 57-year-old King George had died in his sleep. Now, we happen to be in a place where a lot of you probably remember who King George was. Anybody, even though we're in America? Okay, remember who Wallis Simpson was? Anybody know Wallis Simpson? Because she was the American counterpart on here. Remember the king that abdicated his throne, and his brother, King George, took over. King George, has anybody seen The King's Speech? The movie, The King's Speech. So then you know about King George. He was a reluctant king. That's what I would call him. But he was a good king. What do you know about King George and the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Margaret, I think it was, or Anne, or whatever, the sisters and all those kind of get out of the way. But what do you know about them during World War II? What stands out about them during World War II more than any other monarch? They stayed in the country when they were being shipped off. Other monarchs were shipping their people off. They stayed in the country. They were actually, King George and the Queen Mother, Queen Mary, I believe was her name, right? Were in having dinner in Buckingham Palace when a plane was flying over. George goes to the window and he says, "My God, it's one of theirs." And then they bombed the palace, almost killing the king. They stayed together. They held it together. And he went from a monarchy to a, what did we call it, Dave, the other day? I was trying to, no. He went from a monarchy to, because we always think of Russia and those, a socialist, thank you. He went from a monarchy to a socialist government in Great Britain. So he was very well loved and very well liked, even though he had speech impediments, even though he had problems. His daughter, who is the queen now, is the person she is because she was raised by the father she had. So that in 1952 was a devastating thing in Great Britain. People went to the chapels, to the churches to pray. They felt a sense of loss. 1963, I believe it was November. I have to say I was 1 month old. So, wait a minute. I was a year and a month old. Yeah, I got to remember. And in America, something happened that sent people to their knees. Kennedy. John Kennedy was assassinated. Do you remember where you were, what you were doing?
Absolutely.
Everybody remembers that. September 11th, 2001. Sent people to their knees. Devastating times. People run to church. They seem to seek God. They have questions of God. God, what is going on? What's happening? 700 years before Christ, we see this kind of situation. Everybody knows who Isaiah is. He's got one of the biggest books in the Bible. But one thing interesting about Isaiah is he was one, actually I believe he was the first prophet over Israel and Judah that was not from the people. He was not of the normal class. You see, Isaiah was out of the courts of the king, yet he was the prophet. So this is why what Laura just read in Isaiah is so important in Isaiah 6, because Isaiah says in the year that King Uzziah died. And we don't hear any more about King Uzziah. But if you look up in history, King Uzziah reigned for 52 years. He was the most prominent, best king that Judah had had since David. Isaiah was his friend. He wasn't just a prophet and a king. He was his friend. He served in his courts. So that's why we know that when Isaiah ran to the temple, he went with a broken heart. He was hurting, but he ran to God. He ran to the place he knew he could find comfort and release. And so the scripture says as he walked into the temple, he saw the Lord. You see, Isaiah saw 4 things. And we're going to talk about those. I'm going to hit them pretty quickly. But I may change a little bit today because in my heart I feel a pulling in a certain way. So it may go a little different. I want you to understand what the glory of God is. It's not something that we all as a corporate here will be sitting here and we'll see. You see, Isaiah went into the temple, but he said, I saw the Lord. He didn't say we saw the Lord. I got to thinking about that. I thought, well, wait a minute. He was in church. He was in the temple. And if God was there, why didn't everybody see him? And then it came to me. How many times have you been sitting in church and the pastor say something that hits you right here, and you have big tears start rolling out of your eyes, and the person next to you looks like, what's wrong with you? You see, the glory of God is a very personal thing. Isaiah didn't see the Lord because he was better than anybody else. He didn't. He saw the Lord through a broken heart, through a heart that was soft and prepared to see God. And too many times today we come to church because it's the thing to do. We come here and we sit here because this is what we're supposed to do. I feel better about myself. You know what? It doesn't matter how you feel about yourself because you come to church. That is nothing but dross and floss. It's going to all be burned up. That doesn't matter. You know what matters? It matters because you want to come and be in the presence of God. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen. We want to spend all week worrying about bills, worrying about payments, worrying about collectors, worrying about what we're going to eat, worrying about the kids. And then on the way to church, you know, mom and dad's driving, the kids are in the back seat, and you're like, shut up, shut up, shut up. Just be quiet, quit fighting. I'm going to whip you when you get home. Oh, thank God we're at church, bless God. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen. You have to be prepared. You have to live in a state of prayer daily. And how do you do that? That doesn't mean all these big, oh, thou my Father, thank you, God, for everything. No. Just, oh, look at that sky. Thank you. You're sitting in your home, and everything can be going around you, going crazy around you. And you think, God, thank you. I have a roof over my head. I was at the other church this past week in the office working and doing some things, and a truck pulled up. And a guy pulled up and he says, I don't want anything. He said, I just want to pray. He said, I thank God because I have a nice truck and it's in good condition because that's my home. He was living out of his truck. On the back of his truck he had a couple of ladders where he could do work. But he was thankful because he had a place to live. How many of us would feel like something's wrong with that? You see, whatever state you're in, find yourself to be thankful. Now, the presence of God. What is the presence of God? Is it something tangible, something you can see, something you can feel, something you can smell? This is unplanned, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want everyone to close your eyes. And Ron, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to talk about Betty. Week before last, Pastor Dave and I want your eyes closed. I want you to picture this in your mind. We went to see Ron and Betty. Pastor Dave walked in and bent over, and Betty just smiled the biggest smile. But now, I want you to see Betty as she has stepped into home and she looks around. This is she may be thinking. The place was white as snow, pure as fine as gold. It had the look of new, it had the look of old. I felt like I was near, but felt so far away. In fear I thought to leave, but felt the urge to stay. Then a light fell, like none I'd ever known. I saw him in his beauty, I saw him on the throne. His face was like the sun, his eyes were like the sea, his voice was like the thunder rolling through eternity. And I saw the Lord. He was high and lifted up and rightfully adored, and I saw the Lord. He saw me. Now open your eyes. Isaiah walked in to the temple and he saw the Lord, but the Lord saw him. And Isaiah said, I'm unclean, God. I'm not worthy, God. I'm a man of unclean lips. And my question today is, no matter who you are and where you've been and what you've done, can God use a sinner? Can God use a person with unclean lips? Absolutely. You see, God should have chosen the angelic host to deliver his message. But he didn't. He chose humanity. He chose us. Everyone here has a past. Everyone here has been through things that shape who you are today. Who better to sit with someone else going through that now than someone who's been there? You see, I used to tell my choir all the time that you can't tell someone how to get somewhere with a surety if you've never been there yourself. Isn't that the case? When you've been there, you know how to get there. And more importantly, you know how to get back. You see, Isaiah, with a broken heart, he was the prophet of God, but his heart was broken. He saw God, and you know yourself. You can sit at home and you can see church on TV. You can see your neighbors down the road. You can see all sorts of things, and you can find fault, and you can find, you know, it's funny how when you can sit in your easy chair and look at people, you can find every fault they have. Isn't that funny? You can find every fault, but you, I don't see. You come to church. The closer you seem to get to God, and God is light, the more you see about yourself. The more we know, oh God, I'm nothing. It's when you're away from God and pride comes in and you're like, oh, I'm everything. But the closer you get to God in church, that's where we have to be. We have to be close to God. We have to see that there are others that need a hand reaching out to them. In fact, Isaiah, he saw that he was unclean. And when he saw that he was unclean, God sent the angel down and took a coal off of the altar. This altar was where the sacrifices for sin were made. So you have the blood that was shed over the coals and burned. And then the coals represent the purifying fire. Bob, at his house, he has this tool. I don't know what you would call it. I used to know the name, and it's gone. But you melt lead in it. What's it called, Bob, that you melt lead in a...
It has no special name. It's just a melter.
Okay. But it's a smelting, right?
Yeah.
But it separates the impurities out, right? But it's only through heat. It's only through heat. Now, I want you to grasp this. Through high heat, the impurities are melted out and the purities are there. Okay? Let me tell you what would happen if you took that hot object, say it's a hot piece of lead or melted steel or anything like that, even glass, and then all of a sudden you throw it in the cold. Anybody ever taken anything out of the oven and set it in the sink and let cold water hit it? I have. I mean, some great stuff and it shatters. It's broken. But when it's close to the light, when it's close to the heat source, it's malleable. Isaiah became close to God. He was malleable. And how do we know that? Because God said, whom shall we send? Who will go for us? You see, God knew that there was a world that needed someone to bring his presence to them. Isaiah didn't say, well, how much is it going to take? How long am I going to have to do this? Who is it going to be with? Isaiah said, here I am, Lord. Send me. Each one of us here today, it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, can be a vessel of God. Can be someone God can use. Let me tell you today, it doesn't matter what you have done in your life. It doesn't matter, because if Jesus' blood can cover one sin, he covers all sin. And then God looks at you and he says, what sin? All I see is red. All I see is the blood of my son. My son died and gave his life so that you can have salvation. Now, you go share that. Be the face of Jesus that others see. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. As I was talking about Ron a little bit ago, the face of Jesus I saw was that last day when we visited with you, and I saw that your wife smile. That big smile. You know what, Ron? I think she knew she had a secret. Yeah. I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm about to make it. I'm about to be there. I'm about to go. Y'all, come on. Come on. Pastor Dave talks all the time about a great cloud of witnesses. Betty has now become that cloud of witnesses that says, okay, Ron, I'm up. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. It reminds me of the story about the little boy. And I have two boys, and so I'm really partial to the way boys' spirits work and the way they are. Girls seem to be a little more forgiving and malleable, but boys can be broken so quickly. And I remember about the little boy who was 5 years old playing t-ball. And Scott, you'll get this because you got some there, you know. And he was playing t-ball for the first time. He never, ever could hit the ball. He never could hit the ball. It got so bad to where when he would get up to hit the ball, everybody on the team would, oh. He worked in the field. He couldn't catch the ball. He couldn't do anything with the ball. And all of a sudden, one day, the coach stepped out and he said, wait a minute, son. Get your bat. The little boy got up with his bat, and the coach grabs the ball, and he got closer and closer and closer to the little boy. And he slowly pitched the ball to the little boy. The little boy took his bat, and he slammed that ball. And the ball went out into the field, and the little boy was so excited. He was at home. He does this and starts running to third base. When out of the stands appears his father, grabs his little boy up, puts him over his shoulders and turns to the right, and the whole crowd is cheering as Daddy, holding his 5-year-old, runs first base, second base, third base, And all of a sudden, there's just a roar in the whole building because he's coming home. He's coming home. It may have been with the help of his father, but he's coming home. Today, we are going home. Today, you may meet someone when you walk out of here and you don't know where they've been. You don't know the life they're living. You don't know how hard it is for them. But you must be the glory of God, the face of God that others see. And you can only do that by being active. You can only do that by stepping out. You can't sit at home or sit in your room and be critical, because there is nobody here that doesn't have something in your life that God has taken care of, that the blood of Jesus has washed. There's nobody here, not one. So when you think you stand, be careful, because you will fall. It's when you're on your knees that you're closest to God. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your glory that you have shared with us, Father. And I pray, Lord, that you use us to minister to others. Father, let us be a church that loves, a church that reaches out, a church that brings others in, no matter who they are, where they are, Father. Let us show the love of Jesus. Let us be the face of Jesus that others see, Father. And Lord, we thank you for it, for all you've done for us. Thank you that you gave your life that we could live. Now help us to share it with others. In the name of